Hey everybody, what's going on? I am DB, and let's make a Chrome extension. We're gonna have to do a little bit of setup for this project, so let's go ahead and get everything that we're gonna need to install in order to make this work. First, we're gonna go ahead and head over to nodejs.org. That's nodejs.org, and we're gonna download 16.16.0 LTS. Your version may be different by the time you see this video. In fact, both versions might be different in this case, but that should be okay. Let's go ahead and click 16.16.0 LTS for the long-term support option and get that downloaded. Once we have that downloaded, you're going to want to open your download, and then you're going to want to install Node. Now, in this instance here, we're going to go ahead and click all the defaults, so I'll accept the license agreement. We're going to install it into my C drive. I'll click Next. And then I'm not going to do anything else, so let's go ahead and just click Next and install. As you saw, everything was default. So we're going to go ahead and let Node install, and I'll be right back. Okay, now that we have Node.js installed, we can go ahead and close the prompt here. The next thing that we're going to need is the Angular CLI. So let's go ahead and get that installed. We can close this Node.js page here, and the next place that we're going to go to is angular.io/CLI. which now we're going to use the npm command to install the Angular CLI. You might be asking yourself what npm stands for. It simply stands for Node Package Manager, which is what's allowing us to do all this work underneath the hood. So let's go ahead and copy this command here. We're going to go ahead and open a terminal now. As you can see, I opened the command prompt. The next thing we're going to do is take that command by doing a Control V. And we're going to go ahead and run this command. I already have the Angular CLI set up, so my install will go faster. If you need to, you can simply just pause the video while yours installs. Once it's done, you now have the Angular CLI, and you also have Node Package Manager set up. So the last thing that we're going to go ahead and install next is Visual Studio Code. So go ahead and close your terminal for now. We're going to go ahead and go over to code.visualstudio.com, and we're going to go ahead and download the latest version of Visual Studio Code for Windows. You're going to see my install happen. We're going to open up the install, and then we're going to continue through with all the defaults also selected. So the next thing it's going to ask if you want to create a desktop icon and all that stuff. There's two changes that I actually do like to add here. One is the open with code in the Windows Explorer. And then the other is open with code on the Windows Explorer directory context menu. Go ahead and click those, and we're going to click Next and then Install. This is going to install Visual Studio Code. Once this is done, we'll go ahead and be back. Okay, welcome back. We're going to go ahead now and click Finish. We can launch Visual Studio Code if we would like to. Let's go ahead and click Finish. It'll open it up for us. But at the moment we don't need anything, so we're going to go ahead and just close Visual Studio Code. So now that we have all the tools that we need to go ahead and get our directory structure set up for our project. Next, let's go ahead and get the directory set up for both our project, and we're going to go ahead and put the Angular code inside of our desktop directory. So let's go ahead and go to the desktop, and we're going to make a new folder. We're going to call this, I'm going to call this Tasker. You can call this pretty much whatever you would like to. This application is going to simply just be for making simple tasks that you can enter in your Chrome extension. But for now, let's go ahead and call it Tasker. The next thing that we're going to want to do is set up the Angular code within this directory. So now that we've created it, let's go ahead and open up the command prompt from earlier. From here, we're going to change directories into the desktop folder that we created. So I'm going to go ahead and type cd desktop, and I'm going to type a slash and then Tasker. Notice that I typed a capital D here. Make sure that you do the same. And then here we have our folder. We're going to go ahead and change into it. Now that we've changed directories into our folder, let's go ahead and set up all the necessary Angular files that we need for our project. To do this, we're going to type ng new and then our project name. So I'm going to call this Tasker. So the Angular is going to go through and it's going to ask you several questions. Notice that there's a capital N. Whenever you see a capital letter in any of these prompts, that means that's the default value. So simply pushing enter will let you say that. So in this case, do I want to add Angular routing? We're going to say no. We won't need it for this project. It's a simple project. It's going to ask us what type of style sheets we'd like to use. We're going to stick with CSS right now. It's probably the most simple and one of the more common ones that many people know. So let's go ahead and just simply hit enter on CSS. Now it's going to go through and create all of the different files that we need for the Angular portion of this project. Once that's done, we'll come back. Okay, now that Angular has created all the files that we need, let's go ahead and open up our folder and see exactly what it did. So let's go ahead and close this command prompt. We won't need it for now. Let's go ahead and open up the folder we created. You can see now there is a new folder in here called Tasker. And if I open this folder, we can actually see that there is a source folder. That's the SRC folder. That's going to contain all of our Angular code that we have. So if I open this up, you'll be able to see a whole bunch of different things in here and a whole bunch of different files that we can use. So let's go ahead and, for example, open up main.ts. I'm going to simply right click this and then I'm going to choose open with code. And you can see that we actually have some code already generated for us. This is awesome. And this is going to allow us to hit the ground running. Just so you know, you actually already have a working Angular application at this point, and we can test that. So to test it out, let's go ahead and close Visual Studio Code. Let's go ahead and open up our command prompt, and we're going to change directories back into our desktop folder that we had. So we'll go to desktop and Tasker. But this time, remember, we have another Tasker folder for our project, so we can simply change directory into Tasker once again. And now let's go ahead and just build this to see what happens. So we're going to go ahead and ng build, which is going to build our project. And everything should work because we haven't changed a thing. So you should see nothing but green here. And we see all of the different files that we've created. So now we can simply do ng serve -o. And this is going to open our Angular application that we've created. And here you go. This is a look at the Angular application that you just created. Isn't this awesome? Yours might actually be in a different color because I have a Chrome extension which changes everything for me. You can see here that this might actually be what you're looking at. I have Dark Reader. Dark Reader is awesome, by the way. Not a paid sponsor or anything like that. It's just something that I actually like to use. But with that, you can see now that you actually have an Angular application. But you might be asking yourself, how am I going to convert this into an actual Chrome extension? And we're going to talk about that part next. Now that we've had a chance to preview our application, let's go ahead and turn this into a Chrome extension. So go ahead and close in the upper right corner the browser now. We can also close the terminal as well. Next, we're going to want to open our folder with Visual Studio Code. So even though we can see all our code here from our folder, let's go ahead and go up one level. And now we can see the entire project folder. I want you to right click the project folder, and then you should be able to see open with code. If you don't see it, click show more options, and then you should see open with code here. Let's go ahead and click that. Okay, now we can actually see that we're in Visual Studio Code. If this is your first time opening a project, you might be prompted to trust the authors. So go ahead and make sure that you trust yourself because you're the author. Congratulations. But beyond that, let's go ahead now and continue to connect our Angular application with a Chrome extension. So earlier we were talking about the SRC folder being the source for all of your code. Let's go ahead and drop that down. And now you can see all of the different things that make up the front end of your application. We're going to need to add one new file here. So what I want you to do is right click the SRC folder. We're going to click new file. And I want you to type manifest.json. And this is going to be what connects our application to a Chrome extension. So now we're going to go ahead and define what makes up our application here. So if some of this is unfamiliar to you, don't worry, just follow along and we'll try to make sense of it as we go. Since this is a JSON file, we're going to want to go ahead and open up curly brackets, and we're going to put all of our definitions between these curly brackets. So the first thing that we want to do is define our manifest version number. We're going to do that by opening up quotes, and we're going to put manifest underscore version. Outside of the quotes, we'll put a colon, and then we'll put the number 3. So version 3 is the most current version of manifest at this time. But if yours is different, no worries. You can use 3 for this, or if you want, you could use the newest version that you find. Let's go ahead and continue. Next, we're going to want to give our application a name. So let's go ahead and do name. And we're going to simply just call this Tasker, just as before. Next, we're going to go ahead and put a comma. Let's go ahead and give our application a description. So we're going to go ahead and give it a description. And this description is going to simply just say note-taking app. Everybody knows the more exclamation points that you have, the more serious you are about your project. So make sure to light up the screen with exclamation points. After we've set our description, let's go ahead now and define the version of our application. So we're going to put a comma after description, and then we're going to go ahead and put version. And for this one, I'm just going to do 1.0.0. You could do 1.0, that's fine too. This is just the version number of our application. You might be asking yourself, what's the difference between manifest version up here on line 2 and line 8 here, our version? So manifest version is what Chrome uses to determine the language that you're speaking within your manifest, where this version is what version we're defining for our application. So like, let's say we develop a new feature for our application. We might want to do something like 1.2 or 2.0 if it's a really big change. So that's kind of what the difference is between both of the versions there. There's a couple more things that we're going to need to add to make sure that we can get this working. So let's go ahead and add the next thing, which is how are we going to connect our application to Chrome? What is the entry point? Well, I know that the entry point here is index.html. So the way we tell Chrome that is we have to define what's called an action. And then we're going to give another curly bracket after the colon that we made there. And what we want to do is say our default pop-up is going to be index.html. So whenever you open a Chrome extension, you know how when you click on it, there's like always this little pop-up? That's what the default pop-up is. So we're saying, hey, whenever I click on my extension, I want you to open index.html, and that's going to be our entry point into the application. We're still not done. We have one more thing left to define before we can get started. Let's go ahead and put a comma here, and then we're going to go ahead and do our last thing, which is going to be called the host permissions. So we're going to go ahead and put host permissions. And this time we're going to do square brackets instead of curly brackets because we're going to give it a list. So let's go ahead and give it the list. So we want our Chrome extension to work on any website that we come across. At least in this case, that's what we want to do. So if you think of the different types of websites, you could have something say like HTTP, HTTPS, and then maybe something else completely different. So let's try to account for those 3 different scenarios. First, we're going to do our quotation marks. We're going to put HTTP : // And this is going to represent any combination of HTTP that we can think of. And you can think of star like a wildcard. Basically, the star is saying anything can go in here, and that's okay. Let's go ahead and do our next one, which is going to be HTTPS : // And then the last one was, what if we can't come up with something other than HTTP or HTTPS? Well, then let's just use a star like we were using above. So we'll say star : star /star. And that's going to give us all the possible combinations that we can think of for websites for now. And this should allow our program to work on any website that we come across. So let's go ahead and save this to make sure that we actually keep it. Now that we've created our manifest, the last step that we have to do is connect our manifest to our application. The way we're going to do that is by going into angular.json, and then we're going to find our assets. So we're going to have two asset locations. First, we have our asset here, which is underneath the project's root, which we can see here. It also leads all the way down to here. We can see our different assets. Let's go ahead and put a comma, and then we're going to put src/manifest.json. And now we've defined our manifest in the first location. But what about for like testing purposes and things like that? If we come down to test, we'll be able to also define it under assets here as well. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to put a comma, and then we're going to put src/manifest.json. And again, if you're confused as to why we're doing src, it's because we defined our manifest file underneath our source folder. That's why we make that connection. So now that we've done this, let's go ahead and give it a save. And we finally have a Chrome extension. How do I know? Well, let's find out together. So first, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and open our command prompt. And we're going to cd again into the desktop and tasker. And then let's go ahead and go in one more level. So we'll go ahead and cd one more time into the second tasker folder. So it should look like this now. So what we're going to do next is we want to build our application. So we're going to go ahead and do ng-build, which is going to build our application. And hopefully we see a bunch of green once this is all done. Sure enough, we do. So what did this do for us exactly? It actually created an output of our application within the folder that owns our project. So if we go back to the folder that we have on our desktop, we should be able to find inside of Tasker a distribution folder or dist folder. So if I click on that folder here, you'll notice that there is another little Tasker that I have here. And if I click it, there's all of the different files really condensed down to the bare minimum to make our application. So I can see though, the one thing that we did is our manifest now is connected. So let's finally open up Chrome. Let's go to Chrome. And the next thing we're going to want to do now is we're going to type in Chrome, CHROME, / extensions. This is the page that's actually going to show you all of your Chrome extensions, but notice in the top right corner there's a developer mode. Make sure that this is turned on, because the next thing that we're going to want to do is click on Load Unpacked. So let's go ahead and click that. We're going to go to our desktop. We have our Tasker folder, which we're going to click on. We're going to go into our second level Tasker folder. So we're going to click on this as well. And now we're going to go into our distribution folder. So let's click on distribution. Finally, the final Tasker, we're going to click on it. We're not going to double click. We're going to click on it and we're going to click select folder. And if you look, we actually have a Chrome extension now as a test, a part of Chrome. So if I actually wanted to take a look at this, what I could do now is in the upper right corner under my Chrome extensions, I can click the little puzzle piece and you can see here's Tasker. I'm going to go ahead and pin this to my taskbar. And let's go ahead now and open Tasker. And wouldn't you know it, you've got yourself your very own Angular Chrome extension. So This is a very, very, very simple Chrome extension. We didn't make any changes to the base extension itself, or sorry, the base application itself, but we did manage to load our Angular application into Chrome. What if we wanted to make changes now? Let's say that obviously, like, there's a whole bunch of cool buttons here, but I want to make my own stuff. So in this instance, what we can do is we can take out the boilerplate and add our own code. So let's do that. So first thing what we're going to do now is we're going to go back into Visual Studio Code, and we need to find the code that displays that Chrome extension because we want to get rid of all of it. So what we're going to do, remember, your source code is under your SRC folder. So in there, if we go into the app folder, this is where all of the boilerplate app code is. So if I look at this HTML, I can guarantee you it's probably going to have everything we're looking for. And sure enough, there is a whole bunch of code here as far as HTML is concerned that is actually creating that application for us. So let's go ahead and delete this. And what we're going to do now is we're going to actually do something different. Let's do an h1 tag. So we'll do h1. Oops. And then we're just simply going to put hello world. We're going to save this. Now let's go ahead and build our application again. So we're just simply going to do, we're going to open up our command prompt. If you already have yours open, just go ahead and do that and then type ng build. Hopefully it builds again. So we're going to wait to see. Sure enough, it was successful. So now we're just going to repeat the steps that we did before. So we're going to open up Chrome. Let's go ahead and remove what we have here, because I just want to do this for emphasis to make sure that you understand how it works. So let's go ahead and remove this. It's going to say, do you want to remove it? We're going to click remove. We're going to go load unpacked. We're going to go to our desktop, tasker, the distribution folder, and then click tasker, select folder. Here's our application. Let's go ahead and open our application by clicking the puzzle piece and clicking tasker. And sure enough, there is hello world. But this app really isn't that fun yet because all it says is hello world. But now it's a blank canvas for you to make a Chrome extension out of whatever you would like to do. There will be a video eventually that I'll post which will cover how to upload your Chrome extension to the Chrome Dev Store. There may be some other stuff too, but for now, this covers the basics. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it back to me, the live version. That concludes this tutorial for making an Angular Chrome extension. Don't worry if something didn't make sense along the way. The important thing is, if you were able to follow this tutorial and get a working Chrome extension, you now have the blueprint to actually go make one yourself. Make changes to this application. Feel free to mess things up and have fun along the way while you're making these changes. I hope you were able to get something out of this tutorial. It was a lot of fun. I am DB. You are you. Keep being the best version of you that you can be, everybody. Peace out.